Hello Year 11, I hope you're having a good day. This is your night before news video for Spanish, specifically for the writing paper that you're about to take. This video will be divided in two. So the first half is for foundation tier students, and then from the minute 27 onwards is for the higher tier. So if you are doing the foundation paper, you can watch it up to the minute 27, and if you're a higher student, then you can start it on the minute 27, on the 27 minutes. Yeah. I hope you enjoy it, and I hope you can practice. You can pause the video at any time so you can see the question and have a go answering by yourself. But most importantly, take the time to watch it all so you can understand what you need to do in each of the questions. Okay. I hope you enjoy it, and see you soon. Okay, so here you have a brief summary of the paper. The paper lasts 1 hour and 15 minutes. All questions are written in English, but you must answer them in Spanish. There are 3 writing tasks specifically and 1 translation task. The total mark for the paper is 50 marks. Question 1 is when you describe a photo. Question 2 is a 40-50 words writing. Question 3 is the 80-90 words, and the question 4 is the translation, in which you have to translate 5 sentences into Spanish. On this part, you can see as well what is required for each question. You can pause this video here if you want to have a closer look to what is required for each of the 4 questions. What is important to remember is that the whole paper, is based on the same topics you have covered for your speaking exam and throughout your GCSE Spanish course. Now, this is how the paper will look like. Is clearly showing all the information that you need to be aware of. Please make sure when you are sitting your exam, you are having in front of you the right paper. It should have the time as well as I explained before. Question 2, there is an option for you where you can choose. So, and also in question 3. So in question 2 and 3, out of the 4 questions, question 2 and 3, you can choose either A or B to answer. Please make sure you are choosing the topic you feel more confident about. You don't need to answer both options. So remember, question 2 and 3, you can choose A or B. There are more information there. I just highlighted for you to pay attention to. You can pause this slide as well if you want to have a closer look. Okay, so this is question 1. Question 1, foundation tier. You have to describe a photo, which is a really nice question to get the first marks in your pocket very easily. You have 8 marks available, and I'm sure that everyone is able to get this. Remember, this is foundation tier only. So this question is just for the foundation paper. And so what you have to do, you have to describe the photo you see in very simple sentences, but make sure that every sentence has enough information to actually describe something in the photo. I'm going to show you some examples. So let's have a look at the photo. You can see there is a family, or yeah, you can say it's a family, you can say 4 people, and they are doing a walk. You can clearly see the landscape and the trees, the lake at the back, etc. So what you're expected to do is to write 4 short sentences relevant to the picture, accurate, using an accurate verb. This is super important. As you can see, the 3rd bullet point on the right, it says with an accurate verb. So you must add a verb in your sentences. So let's see. Some tips. Let's see some tips. So one of the tips is make it simple. In this case, it's better to have a better sentence written rather than something complicated that you might struggle to write. Okay, so things like there is a man, there is a family, they are walking, there is a forest in the background. Things like that are accurate and are precise and don't require a lot of complicated words. Okay. It's very important because you are describing the photo, you use the present tense or the present continuous tense. So the present to indicate what is in the photo, and the present continuous to indicate what people are doing. Okay. So I'm gonna make some notes around. This is something that you could do as well on the paper itself. You can make notes around, you can write over the picture, it's completely up to you. So I'm gonna put cuatro personas, as in 4 people. Lleva una camiseta azul. I need to remember those 2 verbs because those are useful to describe what someone is wearing. Montaña is a nice word. You learned it a long time ago and it's useful in this case because there are some mountains in the background. Árboles, this is something that not many people remember. That means trees. Campo, you know this one, countryside. Mochila means backpack. So we can start with, after I make some notes, I'm going to start answering the first sentence. And I'm going to start with how many people I can see. Hay 4 personas. Effective, short sentence. It's describing what I see. 4 people. There are 4 people. Hay árboles verdes. So I can say there are green trees. So this will show as well some understanding of the Spanish. If I only see there are trees, it's okay, but in order to secure the mark, why not describing the color of the trees? But make sure you are agreeing the gender and the number, okay? So árboles, plural, verdes, plural, and both are masculine. Sentence 3. El hombre lleva una camiseta azul. So this is the kind of thing that you can memorize, how to describe what someone is wearing. The man wears a blue shirt. And then why not try to add a sentence about the weather? There is a good weather, or it's nice weather, basically that is what it means. And those are the kind of sentences that I'm sure you have learned by heart a long time ago. So this is the place where you can use them. Okay, as you can see, 4 sentences, very simple, specific, not complicated vocabulary, and very effective. This is what is expected, guys, to get the 8 marks. Now, this is question 2, foundation tier. This is when you have to write between 40 and 50 words suggested. Now, you can go over, yes you can, but make sure if you go over, you are not just adding vocabulary for the sake of it. Just make sure you're still adding relevant information to your answers, okay? Because it's 40 and 50 words, my recommendation is to do at least between 12-15 words per bullet point. Okay, in that way you are quite safe with the vocabulary. So this is how it's presented. You will have 2 options, as I said before. So question 2, you have option A and option B. What do you have to do? Well, have a look at the questions. As you can see, what you have to write about is written in English, and start thinking, what do I know more about? In which area I feel more confident? Look at the first one. It says, write an article about a music group you know. You must include the following points: description of the group, your opinion of their music, when you will next listen to the music. So in these 3 bullet points, you are asked to write about music. So how much you remember about, for example, technical language as in rhythm, lyrics, songs, bands, music type or music styles. So you need to consider those things, as that is the vocabulary that is needed to answer those questions. Okay. Then if you look at the second one, 2B, is about write an article about tourist places where you live, description of a tourist place in your area, your opinion on this place, where you will visit in the future. I think if I look at the second one and it's about touristic place, maybe you have more knowledge about tourism, maybe you have more knowledge about how to describe a touristic place. Maybe for you it's easier to say where would you like to go in the future, as in a place to visit. So take in consideration what you know more about, what you feel more confident about before choosing either A or B. I think I made a mistake before when I told you about 4 bullet points. There are just 3. Sorry, this question is 3 bullet points, not 4. Also, you notice something very particular in the third bullet point of each option is a future question. So in this question number 2, you are not required to use a past tense. So this is quite interesting. So please do not use the past tense in question 2. foundation paper. Only opinion, description, and future. Okay? So, what do you know more about? Music group or tourist places? So that is a question. Some tips. Read the bullet point carefully, brainstorm key a vocabulary for each. Yeah, if you have the time, which I'm sure you will, why not make a little brainstorm of ideas in each for each option, and then you can, that will help you to decide which option to take. And then what you have to do is to put a cross in the box of the one you have chosen. Please do not forget that. And again, you don't have to answer both. So let's imagine you have chosen option B in question 2. Okay, so my recommendation is to start with some notes. You can do these notes in English around the bullet points, so you know what you need to write about. So the first bullet point is description of a tourist place in your area. So maybe I could mention things I know by heart in Spanish, like the Spanish for museum, square, castle. And then for an opinion, make sure you always put a reason, okay? Giving an opinion on itself is not good enough. You always need to say why you like a place, why you dislike something, why is your favorite, why you prefer it, okay? Make sure you always have the habit of adding a reason after an opinion. Finally, because this is the question 2, where you only can use the extra tense, sorry, the other tense you can use is the future one, make sure you make a note of that. Don't use the past tense. Now, it's important the first word, because the bullet point is telling you to say where you will visit in future. Okay, it's essential. You don't say when, you must say where. So you can then start planning your your answer. So you could say things because yeah, you put in English what you want to talk about. So now you put the Spanish, and you have a space to do this in your paper, guys. You have plenty of space to write these ideas. So la plaza, barrio antiguo, turistas, those are good words to use for the first bullet point. For the second, me gusta, porque, as given reason, visitar, bonita, antigua, tiendas, some ideas why you like it. And where, I put two examples. El fin de semana que viene, because it's in the future, right? It's the next weekend. And also I put mañana, because mañana means tomorrow, another idea for the future. And then, of course, I need my verbs. Voy a visitar, sorry, voy a visitar if I'm using the near future, or the other option I have is the simple future, visitaré. All these tenses, guys, have been revised in lesson. Actually, the simple future, we just revised it not that long ago. You can also use this type of phrases. I would like to visit, quisiera visitar. Also very useful. So you have brainstorm your ideas, and then you need to start considering how you're going to put this together in phrases or sentences and that form a paragraph. So let's move on to the next one. Okay, so get back to my notes. I already have my planning on the right, as you can see on the screen. And this is my answer. So I'm going to put the whole answer. You can pause this part of the video for you to have a closer look, and you can see how I organized all my ideas in sentences for each of the bullet points. You also can see the amount of words. It's good practice to make a note of that as well, so you have a rough idea, idea of how close or far you are of the suggested amount of words. After you are happy with your answer, make sure you always proofread your work, because there might be mistakes about gender, for example, or you use a plural instead of a singular idea, or you forgot to add the infinitive after ideas like me gustaría or voy a or quiero. So always use the time, because you will have plenty to read your work. Okay, so now is question 3. This is the 80-90 words question. This is where you can get the highest amount of marks. So this is a very crucial question, to be honest, because this is when you show off all the Spanish you've been learning so far. This question also has two options, A and B. So you need to go through the same process. Start considering what you feel more confident to talk about, in which topic you feel like you have more vocabulary you can use. However, both will ask in a way the same thing. They will ask you for a description where you can use the present tense. They will ask you for an opinion. They will ask you for you to use the past tense and the future tense. So in this question, you must use the past tense. Please, in this one, you must use opinion, past, future. Okay? There is no way you can get all the marks in this question if you miss a tense or if you miss any answer for one of the bullet points. In order to get all the marks, you of course must answer to the 4 bullet points. However, if you answer, let's say you are not sure or you really struggle with one of the tenses, you still can get marks for what you have written, but obviously you won't be achieving top marks. Okay? It's quite obvious, but it's good to remember that. So you again need to decide what you want to talk about. So the first one is about school, maybe you know more about that, and option B is about sports. Okay, so think about in which topic you can you have more vocabulary. Maybe you have more vocabulary about school, you are better at describing a school. Maybe you're better at talking about sport activities. So you need to take that decision, and it's good again to make some brainstorming and decide which topic is the best for you to answer. You can only answer one of the options. After you have decided, as usual, like in question 2, you must put a cross in the one you have chosen. Okay guys, so this slide I want to show you as well because it shows the top marks you can get for this question, question 3. It's divided in 2 because the examiner used 2 lenses, let's say, to mark your answer. So on the left, you get the marks if you have answered all the questions, all the bullet points, the 4 bullet points, and if you have developed your ideas. Okay, now what does that mean? For example, if you are describing the school and you just say, en mi colegio hay un laboratorio, in my school there is a lab, that is not developed. But if you say things like, en mi colegio hay un laboratorio donde hacemos experimentos y tenemos las clases de ciencias, that's much better. In my school there is a lab where we do experiments and we have science lessons. Okay, so make sure you develop your ideas. The other point says response is comprehensive and occasional message might be unclear. Yeah, so you're doing foundation, guys, so there are mistakes that will happen, but you still can get higher marks even if the message is not 100% clear. They will consider that, but you still can be around the top marks. On the right, it's all about grammar. So the maximum marks you can get is 5 for grammar, and as you can see, they expect you to have a good variety of vocabulary, some extended sentences, complex sentences. It says some complex language. Sorry for that. Is basically they would like to see in your paper, when you are answering a bullet point. For example, a complex idea is that you are using what someone else thinks. An example of that is, mi hermano piensa que el colegio es muy aburrido. My brother thinks the school is very boring. That is an idea of a complex language. Okay, so make sure you use the third person where you can. You are not getting the top marks if you don't, or if you forget to use either past, present, or future. You must have the 3 time frames. So please make sure you check that when you're proofreading your work. Okay, and at the bottom says generally accurate. So as you can see, it says generally accurate. So don't expect, they are not expecting you to have 100% accuracy correct. Okay, there could be some minors or a few major errors, and you still can get a higher mark. Okay, so I hope that this gives you an idea of what they're expecting when you're answering question 3 in order to get full marks. Okay, like in question 2, it's super important for you to plan your answers. On the right, you can see something that says qualifier, adjectives, connectives, negatives, time expression, sorry, opinion, time expression. That is what we call quack knot. So it's a way for you to verify you are covering what is needed for a good writing. You have seen that before, and this is also in your speaking booklet. Okay, if you want to have a closer look at what these qualifiers are or examples of them, of qualifier, adjective, connective, negatives, opinion, and time expression, go back to your speaking booklet, because there is a nice list of vocabulary there that you can use for this. So make sure you have in your writing these elements. That is basically why that is there. So planning is relevant, is crucial in order to get good marks. So let's imagine we pick the one about the school. So the first one is about describing my school. So I made a note of that. So I could write about all these things. What is this name? Where it is located? If this a description of the building. What is there? What isn't in my school? For the second bullet point, which is about my opinion on subjects, I could obviously list some subjects. Which one is my favorite? Ideally compare one versus the other. Me gusta el inglés, pero prefiero las matemáticas, for example. I like English, but I prefer math. There is a phrase there. The third phrase says, se me da bien, which is a nice Spanish phrase to say I'm good at. Then the third point is when you use the past tense, and they are asking you to write about last week at school. So you must use verbs written in the past tense. Like, for example, some preterite, what you did, okay? What you did, estudié, maybe you ate something nice at school, comí, maybe you played outside, jugué, maybe you played with friends, jugamos, maybe you ate with friends, comimos, yeah? And then obviously describe those sentences, what you played, what you ate, etc. And some irregulars, key irregulars actually, crucial irregulars, like fui, fuimos, hice, hicimos, fui al gimnasio, fuimos a la biblioteca, hice mis deberes, hicimos un trabajo de arte, we did or we made an artwork, fue, it was, fue genial. And there are some ideas there. And the fourth bullet point is after school activities. So this is the future one. In this case, you could say, you can use the near future, voy a, plus an infinitive, voy a estudiar, or tengo que, I have to, plus an infinitive, tengo que estudiar, I have to study, or quisiera, which is another way to say I would like, plus an infinitive, quisiera aprender y estudiar más, I would like to learn and revise more. Or some ideas like the ones asistir al club de música. Quisiera asistir al club de música. I would like to attend to the music club. Voy a tocar un instrumento. I'm going to play an instrument. So this is not obviously the answer, but this is what is expected from you to do before you start answering the question. Planning your answer. Identify the bullet points. Recognize what they ask you to write about, make a list of ideas that then you can put together in the paragraph. Also remember to use the quack note on the right so you know that you have some qualifiers, some adjectives, etc. Okay, you can pause this to give you an idea. Okay, so finally is question number 4, the translation one. So after you finish your lovely paragraph, the 80-90 words, you move on to this question. This one is 10 marks, and on the right you can see as well there is a suggestion of time for you to use for this question. 10 minutes should be enough. There are 5 sentences. It's important, if you look at bullet point 5, it says mostly first person, and that's true. Most of the translation are about using I or we, and there is one, or at least there will be one where you have to use the third person, he, she, it, or they. Okay, they do get more challenging, so as you can see they get longer, and the last one obviously will be the more challenging one. But some tips, guys, straight away. You must attempt every sentence. Please do not leave any blank. Draft sentence on the side if necessary. If unsure of a word, try to find a substitute or a way around it. Yes, let's say you don't know how to say the negative of something, then try to play around the words to make it negative. For example, if one of your sentences you need to translate es muy barato, which is it's very cheap, sorry, you have to translate it to Spanish, it's very cheap, and you would say es muy barato, well, maybe you could say instead no es caro, it's not expensive, which will be the same idea. Avoid word-to-word translation. It's really important. Remember, translation doesn't work like that at all, and you have learned that already. So you need to translate the message, not the word by word, not word by word. Double check your answers, agreement, adjectives, gender, number is really important. The order of the words is not the same. By say in Spanish, black cat is not negro gato, it's the other way around, gato negro. So those mistakes can happen, so make sure you check on those. Okay, so this I would say is never too hard, but sometimes students overthink it. Yeah, so don't do that. Attempt every question from A to E to translate them. And even if you are struggling with one word, let's say, translate everything you can then of the phrase, because you still might get some marks. Okay, guys, and my final tip for the foundation paper, paper 4 writing, is to spend at least 10 minutes at the end of your paper when you feel like you're all done. Spend some time, 10 minutes, just to go over it. Check that you have clearly answered every bullet point, that you have met the word count, that your verb sentences are accurate, that you have the agreement with adjectives, feminine, feminine, masculine, masculine, that you have used prepositions as article correctly, like el, la, los, unos, etc., and that you have included a variety of quack notes. Remember that you can access to those again in your speaking booklet. They are described there as well. So I really hope this is helpful for you guys. Take the time to go over as many times as you can. This was the foundation paper Spanish writing. Okay. I'm gonna stop this part of the presentation now, and then it will continue, but it will continue for the higher. So if you are a foundation student, you're doing the foundation paper, please stop here. Thank you very much. Have a nice rest of your day. Okay, so now we're gonna move to the higher paper 4. This is a Spanish writing. So if you are doing the higher tier, guys, make sure you pause this part of the video so you can have a closer look to the 3 questions you will be answering in this paper. Okay, you are answering only 3 questions. The 3 of them will be written in English about what you have to do, and in the 3 of them are require you to only use Spanish. Okay, so take your time to have a look at each specification. Okay, so this is how the paper cover should look like for you guys. Make sure that you have the right paper in front of you when you are doing the exam. It should say 4H, that is higher, and you've got the right paper, which is writing. As well, make sure you understand all the instructions given on the cover. You will have 1 hour and 20 minutes. You will see the question 1 and 2 out of the 3 questions have 2 options, A and B, and you can choose one of them and answer only one of them. You don't need to answer both options in each question. You've got 50 marks available, and anything else, please make sure you read carefully all the instructions on the paper. Okay, so the first question is the 80-90 words. In this one, you are expected to answer to 4 bullet points. As you can see, you have option A or option B. Make sure you choose the one you feel more confident talking about, writing about. So therefore you are more able to get better marks. The first bullet point is always about a description of something. The second is an opinion. The third, you must use the past tense, and in the fourth, you must use the future tense. Okay. As you are doing higher, it's expected to use a variety of tenses if you can. For example, the preterite and the imperfect, and in the future bullet point, the simple future and the near future. Also, it's really important to always try to use somewhere in your writing what someone else think, what someone else says. Include the third person where you can. Where you can. Don't try just to put it for the sake of it. Put it in a place where it makes sense with your writing. So after you have chosen what you want to write about, so in this case you have a school or you have a sport, it's really important that you put a cross in the chosen one. Okay, there are some tips there on the left, on the bottom left, that you can have a look again. You can pause this slide so you can have a closer look at each of the bullet points and see how much you understand of them, or start thinking what you will write about. All right, guys, so I want to show you this because this is how you know if you are able to get all the marks or not, basically. Yeah. So when you get your paper or your question, actually your question 1 marked, the examiner will have 2 columns. Okay, so you can see you have 11 to 13, so 13 is the maximum marks you can get on that column, and then 5 on the second column. So this question is 18 marks in total. Obviously you can have less, but I'm showing you only the top band, yeah, because what I want you is to be on this band, on the top band. So in order to get 13 marks, you must answer the 4 bullet points, first of all. You must develop your ideas. So for example, saying juego baloncesto porque es interesante y me mantiene en forma, which is I play basketball because it's interesting and keep me fit, is not enough. That's not well developed. You are not convincing anyone. So you must say things like juego baloncesto porque es interesante y me mantiene en forma. Además, pienso que es un buen ejercicio para mí y mi amigo piensa que es muy divertido. So in that case, I say what I think about it, and also I included what my friend thinks about it. That is a developed idea. On the right side, in order to get the 5 mark, which is the top one, you must have a variety of vocabulary, which you do. But the third bullet point where it says complex language is really important because that is basically, again, it's about using someone else's ideas or opinions in your writing. What your mom thinks about it, what your friend thinks about it. Okay, those are considered complex language. On the 4th bullet point on the right, it says successful use of past, present, and future. If you miss 1 tense, then you won't get full marks. Okay, so make sure you have some ideas written in the past where appropriate, ideas in the present where appropriate, and ideas in the future where appropriate, please. The bottom bullet point on the right says generally accurate, some minors, and 1 or no major errors. So there might be some mistake, guys, but you are very good at Spanish, so you won't be making many, so I don't think that will affect you. But as you can see, there is some room for little mistakes in your writing. It's okay. Okay, so now that you have chosen option A, which is about school, let's imagine that you feel more confident with that one, and you have made some notes about what to write about and what tense to use in each of the bullet point. Then you need to consider what extra vocabulary you can use to boost your answer. For that, there is something called quack knot, which is also in your Spanish speaking booklet. So you have lovely description of each of these points, qualifier, adjectives, connective, negatives, opinion, and time expressions, with a lot of examples in your booklet. So go back to those if you're not sure what is this quack knot. Now this is obviously an acronym, quack knot, for all those elements that will make your answer much better, because you must include in your answer, somewhere in your answer, this is not for every bullet point, but somewhere in your answer you must have some qualifiers. Obviously you need loads of adjectives, connectives, negatives, opinions, and time expressions. So it's a good idea to remember this acronym, so then you are sure that you're answering the bullet points with a lot of information that is needed to get all the marks. So now let's move on to Spanish. So you need to start now planning your answer. It's very important for you to plan your answer, guys, so then you don't say things randomly in your bullet points, okay? So the first bullet point about description of a school, you can say things about their names, location, how's the building, etc. For the second one, some Spanish ideas could be some subjects, of course, comparison phrases, as in, for example, es más interesante que, it's more interesting than, or comparing subjects using se me da bien, I'm good at, but I'm not very good at maybe another subject. The third, which is the last week at school, where you need to use the preterite or any form of past tense. In your case, guys, because you're doing higher, you must use at least 2 types of tenses, so preterite and imperfect, okay? For example, if you are describing what you did last week at school, you could say things like, la semana pasada estudié inglés. Sin embargo, cuando era pequeño, no me gustaba estudiar inglés. So last week I studied English. However, when I was little, I used to hate, or I didn't like studying English. So these are just random ideas, but it's a good habit to start thinking, how can I use more than one type of past? If you struggle with that, you can only use one type of past tense. For example, I went, I visited, I studied, we ate, we played. That is fine. I'm just telling you how can you maybe boost your answers, yeah? Then in the fourth bullet point, which is in the future tense one, make sure you have ideas such as voy a plus infinitive, tengo que. Tengo que in the middle there means I have to, and quisiera, I would like. All of these three ideas require an infinitive after. So you can say, sorry, it went to the next slide. But what I tried to say before is that if you use any sentence that require an infinitive, make sure you put the infinitive, okay? So now we can see how these ideas can be put together in the paragraph. So there you go. You have the amount of words in each of the bullet point answers. Pause this video here so you can have a closer look at how these bullet points have been addressed, because this is a very good model example, okay? Okay, so now we're going to have a look at question 2. Now, this is the... all questions, of course, are important, but this is the one where you can get the majority of the marks in the paper. Okay, so we are talking about 22 marks available in this question, and the amount of words suggested is between 130 and 150 words. My personal advice when you are answering this question is to start the paper answering question 2, because this is when you can pour all your creativity, all the language, all the vocabulary you already have, and then you are not too tired to write this question after writing question 1, which is the 90 words one. So my recommendation is for you to start with question 2. So this is when you are asking, in this question you also have two choices, so option A and option B, and the same process applies to this one. So you need to think first, what topics do you feel more familiar with? What topic, in which of the two topics you have more vocabulary knowledge? And in which topic basically you can develop your answers. Now this is not the same style as question 1. What is important here to realize is, for example, if you look at the second bullet point in each of the options, you will see that the bullet point says the pros and cons of whatever the topic is. In this case, we have of going to concerts and the pros and cons of having a big group of friends. So this question is asking you to list ideas looking for the positive and negative. So you need to learn sentence starters for that bullet point. Some ideas could be, for example, lo bueno es, the good is, blah, 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 or lo malo, and then lo malo es, and then you develop the idea. You could also say things like una ventaja es, which is the Spanish for an advantage, and then una desventaja, which is the disadvantage. So that is super important in this question, because remember, you're always convincing the reader, and if you give your points, pros and cons, and you give examples, you give reasons why, then you are definitely securing loads of marks. The first bullet point in both cases are descriptions most of the time, and then you also need to add, you need to write using the past tense and the future tense. Here is 100% recommendable to use both types of past tenses and both types of future tenses in order to secure the marks. In this question, you also must include a third person opinion, what someone else think about something that could even support your pros and cons. Depending on how you write it, you could say things like, mi amigo piensa que ir a conciertos es muy interesante. Y sin embargo, yo pienso que puede ser un poco ruidoso. So you say that your friend thinks is interesting, but you think that can be noisy. So that could be a pro and a con that you could use as well. Obviously, you need to develop those ideas further, but it can help you to put a third person opinion in your answers. You can see on the top right some the description of each of the bullet point, what you need to write about, and some extra tips. As usual, you must read the bullet points carefully. You must, it's up to you, but I recommend you to brainstorm some ideas for each of the bullet points before you're taking even the decision of which one you want to write about. Think about which one is the easiest for you to write about, and when you have chosen one, remember to put a cross in the chosen topic. Okay? Okay, so let's pretend we have chosen option B, which is about friends. So I put my cross on my choice, and then I would like to show you some of the notes I would make. So the first bullet point, it says the people you like spending time with. So I would say spending time with friends. I can talk about what I do with friends, and all those ideas are mainly in the present tense. Then in the pros and cons one, maybe a con could, one of the pros and cons could be describing what happened in the big group of friends, maybe as in what would be the negatives and positives of having a big group of friends. You just think about what could you say. Don't overcomplicate it with the vocabulary. Think about normal situations that you face in this case with a big group of friends. So do not overcomplicate it with vocabulary. All that you need to put here so far is just remember that you must say something positive, you must say something negative. That's all. It's just a reminder. Then on the third bullet point, you need to use the past tense, so that's why it's different color there. And on the last one is on the future. So again, go back to the quack note, so you can access that, as I said before, in your speaking booklet with more details, but you must add all these elements for a successful answer. They don't need to be all together in one bullet point, yeah? So I'm saying that all these elements, qualifier, adjectives, connectives, negative, opinions, and time expressions could be spread all over your answer, yeah? Not all of them in one bullet point. Now, why so important to plan the question? You can see it will help you to put your ideas together and then develop your essay paragraph by paragraph. But it's important to note down what you want to say. So on the first one, it could be pasar tiempo con mi mejor amigo. Who is your best friend? In this case, I put se llama Sofía. La conocí en when I met this person. We have a lot in common, it says on the third line. Tenemos mucho en común. And then some things that we do in common, maybe music, maybe reading. And then at the bottom line, it says she or he makes me laugh. Another phrase that you should have learned maybe last year when you are describing a good friend. For the pros and cons, I got una ventaja. As you can see, this is what I said before. An advantage is that. Una ventaja es que. Or I could say lo mejor es que. The best thing is that. And then for the negative, una desventaja es que. A disadvantage is that. And then some ideas. What could I say after? Discutir, for example, is something negative. Argue. Or no tener tiempo. To not have enough time. On the third one, some preterits idea, what I did, what we did, because it says last event with family and friends. So we ate, we went, we visited, we explored, we watched, etc. So any idea really. And you can also say what you used to do with them and compare that with what you did. So that would be a nice way to use the imperfect. You could say something like, cuando era pequeño comía siempre en un restaurante. Ahora, el año pasado fuimos a un mercado a comer. So you say what you used to do. We used to eat in a restaurant, but last year we went to a market. So that is an event. But then in that case, you are saying what you used to do and what you did recently. And for the future, as you can see, we have the classic voy a, quisiera, tengo la intención de, I have the intention of. Now, those ideas are nice and they are good, but you also could use the simple future, what you will do, and you can play with them along the sentence. You could say something, for example, the bullet point is asking you to say at home next week, what you're going to do. So you could say, en casa voy a escuchar música y leeré un poema. So very random, but you are going to listen to music and then you will read a poem. So you have a mixture of a near future and simple future. And one tip I can give you as well to always use the simple future in your paragraph is finish it using será genial, which is the Spanish for it will be great. So in that case, you're using two words, all that you need to memorize, but you are using automatically the simple future in your paragraph. I will show you now the model answer for this question. So the first bullet point, as you can see, I've highlighted some ideas. I will explain what they mean. So the red ones are the ones that strictly link to the bullet point. The bullet point is asking me the people you like spending time with, and I almost starting my paragraph, I say, me encanta pasar mi tiempo libre con mis amigos. I love spending time with my friends. So that immediately answers the question. Obviously, it's not developed yet. You need to develop with all the information that is also written on that bullet point. In green, you can see some complex structures, which are the ones that the examiner look for to give you the extra marks. And some of the examples are, as you can see, when you put two verbs together, solemos ir, we tend to go. So you have we tend to plus infinitive to go, ir, solemos ir. Also, nos gusta is in green because we usually say me gusta, but if we say nos gusta as we like, it's considered complex. So make sure you use some opinions in the plural form as well. The next one, as you can see in red, is basically the advantage, una ventaja, and then along on the second line, una desventaja, the disadvantage. Some nice expression in green as well, consider complex. As you can see, let me see if I can use where is the pen highlighter? No, it's not. So I think if I can highlight this one. So this one, es que, is the Spanish for is that. So the whole line says, una ventaja de tener un gran grupo de amigos es que nunca me aburro. So basically that says, an advantage of having a great group of friends or a big group of friends is that I never get bored. So it's simple, it's something that maybe you automatically do, and it's considered a complex structure. Another one I'm going to highlight is the reflexive verb here, te apoyan. Okay, so that is something that it says, they support you, te apoyan. This idea of your friends support you, te apoyan. Who? Your friends, te apoyan. And why it's ending in N is because we're talking a group of friends, not just one. Okay, so then we have the third bullet point, which is in the past. So what did I do? Sorry, a past event with family and friends. No, it's the last time you went out with family and friends. So I'm talking about my family, that is in red. Where we went in the countryside, that is also in red. So that addressed the point. And the complex structure here is donde, which you know the word very well. It means where. So it says allí. I'm going to use the pen. Allí visitamos. There we visited a lake, really pretty, so a very pretty lake, where I did a water sport. So this using of where in there is quite complex, but at the same time it's quite simple for you guys because I'm sure you know the word. It's just to know where to use it. Finally, the last one is the future one. It says la semana que viene, so that is next week, Después de hacer los deberes, beautiful structure here. Después de hacer los deberes. So after doing something, after doing the homework at home, and then another green one. Quizás vea, maybe I watch a horror series with my family in the evening. Now, I would put more in that one, I would say. I think it's quite short. I could finish it with what I said before. Será genial. It will be great. And that will be great actually, because I will be using the simple future that is nowhere used. It hasn't been used yet in anywhere in that bullet point. So remember, será genial. It will be great. It's a great way to finish your bullet point answer in the future. Okay, very quickly, I'm going to show you the last question, which is question number 3 for you guys, which is the translation. You are asked to translate a small paragraph from English to Spanish. So if you can write a draft, if it's possible, then proofread it, then cross it if you're not happy with it, and rewrite it, and always proofread your work again. I'm going to show you some tips for this one, because there's not much to say other than translate the paragraph. However, some tips are really important. Try to attempt to translate the whole paragraph, every sentence, even if there is something you don't understand. If you get the idea of the paragraph, I'm sure you can use the logic to still translate, okay? Avoid word-to-word translation. That is never helpful. Translation, it gets marked by the examiner in a way that if you pass the message, then it's better than translate word by word. It's about the message given. Make sure that you always check your agreement, that is feminine with feminine, plural with plural, singular with singular, masculine with masculine. They need to agree. Okay, it's really important, and students sometimes get marked down by making those silly mistakes. So always proofread your work at the end of your translation. I'm going to show you the translation back again. Oh, no, I can't. But if you could go back in the video, try to translate the paragraph. That will be a nice practice for you guys. So you can go back a little bit on this video and pause it where you can see the translation, and you can try by yourself. Okay, so this is the last slide, and it's just a reminder. In my experience, I always see a student finishing the writing paper quite quickly, and so there's no excuse for you to proofread your work. I really expect you to use the time given for the paper wisely. Take your time to answer each question, but at the end of the exam, when you have the last 10 minutes, make sure you go through the whole paper again. Check that you have answered all the bullet points. Check you have the correct amount of words. Remember, you don't get penalized if you do less or more, but try to get around the number suggested. Check that your verbs and tenses are in the right place, that the endings are accurate. Remember that the endings will change depending if you're talking about yourself, someone else, or a plural version of every verb. Make sure that the adjectives agree with the noun, masculine, feminine, feminine, etc. That your prepositions are used correctly. It's very easy to get confused with the for example, how to say for in Spanish, por o para. So make sure you are using them correctly as well. And finally, check your spelling, and if you have used the quack notes reference, as in qualifiers, connectives, etc. You can have a whole look of the quack notes in your speaking booklet. Please remember that. So this is the end of this presentation. I hope it's very useful. My final recommendation would be try to go through this video, and when you finish, go back, watch it again, but in this time pause it for every question and have a go writing it. Have a go writing as if it was your actual paper, and I'm more than happy to check that. If you have some work that you want to share with me, I'm happy to check it. Okay. All the best with your revision. I'm sure you're gonna smash this paper, but always it will depend of all the effort you put and the work and the revision and the time you get to revise your vocabulary, grammar, and the topics. All the best. See you in lesson, guys.